you start to amass the skills to do the next position of leadership, and then the next position of leadership. But it definitely takes initiative on the doctor's part. It's not going to just fall in someone's lap. It's a lot of work. And there are more and more people wanting these type of roles. So you got to show up and figure out what you're interested in and passionate about, because if you're not, it's not worth it. And you're not going to show up in the way you want.
Welcome to Startup Physicians. Please like and follow our show to join our community of physicians who are reimagining healthcare delivery. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Startup Physicians podcast. This is your host, Dr. Alison Curfman, and I'm here with Dr. Lyndsey Garbi, also a fellow pediatric colleague who I've been following your journey for quite some time, Lyndsey. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
So I am even trying to think back to when we first connected, and I very much think it was when I was incubating Imagine Pediatrics, before Imagine had even launched. This is probably in 2022 that we first connected. And I knew we were both building pediatric solutions. So I'd love if you could share a little bit about your clinical background and how you got involved in this work and some of the things you've been building.
Yeah, absolutely. Likewise, though, I have been following your career since the beginning. And I have to say, so I don't forget later, that first discussion with you was like just so validating, because yes, COVID had happened, but it wasn't like this big push for telehealth, or maybe it had started, but people weren't like as convinced for pediatrics in the beginning that this was going to be a really effective tool. And so hearing it from someone else who was like really deep in it and was on the same team as my group was, and had so many like great ideas and was really running with them and showing that the model works and it does really incredible things for people who really benefit from it, especially the high risk population. So back at you, but I will go back to where this started for me. And the space that I'm in, and I'll tell you a little bit about what I do there. But my role is Chief Medical Officer, and I co-founded Blueberry Pediatrics. I'm also a mom of 3. I'm a board-certified pediatrician and neonatologist. And all of those things really help to lend to my expertise and my growth within the area. So when you start up a company, your role changes multiple times. I mean, you do everything from like, I know you bootstrap everything, I'm like, I'm trying to think of like an idea.
I was in charge of picking ridiculous real estate for the Imagine office because nobody else was available that week. So I picked our office.
There you go. Like you become a real estate agent, and even though your background, exactly, you're MD trained. So I've done like everything across the gamut, and the role has changed tremendously over time, which I'm happy to go into each stage of what that means.
Yeah. And I think, when we connected, we were both like very much in the startup stage. And I too, from our first connections, really felt like I, had a lot of camaraderie because we were both trying to do something with telehealth and peds, with different populations. And also, I think one of the big questions that we both talked about back then was like practicing clinically. And I know that's a core value that you and I both share. It was very important to me that I stayed a doctor. I was like, I want to still see patients. I am not abandoning my medical training and degree to take this CMO role. How did you approach clinical practice throughout this whole journey?
Yeah, I think a lot of it's very practical, but I very much agree with the values of having that on the ground experience always. And it's the pathway, like it's what we chose in our life to do from when we're like, for me, it was when I was little. I wanted to be a pediatrician. I wanted to work with children. And though that pathway and the choices change, obviously, is with age, experience, the wisdom that comes with all of that. To me, I still very much cherish patient care and interacting with parents as a neonatologist with babies that are just precious. So though the amount of clinical time drops as responsibilities for a startup comes on, that, yeah, being able to still interact and have that part of my life is very important to me.
I agree. And some of it ebbs and flows. There's been times that I've had to maybe do a little less clinical work, and then there's other times I've had the opportunity to take on some more. I like you. I genuinely like taking care of kids. I know that my impact in the ER is meaningful, and it is more of a one-to-one impact. I also enjoy having a startup career where I feel like I can have this one-to-many impact by designing new systems. So how did you first get into this opportunity? Was Blueberry Peds your first startup?
Yeah, this was my first and so far only. They really demand a lot. I said I had 3 children. This is like my 4th baby pretty much. But I connected with the other co-founders, and they were kind of drumming up ideas and then wanted to be in the pediatric space. And we just really went back and forth on what would work. And I think my job at that point was telling them all the things that did not work, because when you come from an adult world of medicine, it is an extremely different perspective than when you walk into pediatrics. And I always say this, and like, maybe it's just, I hope it's not taken the wrong way, but like, you don't mess with kids. Like, you don't mess with adults either. You don't want anything to go wrong in an adult world, life and medical decision making. But like kids, like, you can't screw up anything, because the detriments are just too humongous to bear and just should not happen. So being a naysayer in the beginning was I think what my co-founders at the time were like, okay, like, she's going to be critical. She's going to tell us what, the truth up front, and we're going to make a product and a service that is super viable and is going to do what's best for children with no cutting corners. And I was going to hold them accountable to it. So that created the really excellent and honestly, I'm so lucky, because that's maintained through the years, where we have a very healthy working relationship, which I'm sure you can attest to. Like, the balance between business and the clinical side gets strained and difficult at times.
Yeah. And not all people have had the experience that you and I have had, where our partners very deeply valued the clinical perspective, and they also agreed, like, we cannot possibly put any safety at risk. We have to have the highest, most high quality clinical model, and then realizing where you can like give a little. Like, I joke that, like, our goal as the physician is to really guard the quality and safety of the product, and health equity, making sure that all the things we stand for as a physician are present in the product that we're building. And if it's something that's not related to quality and safety, maybe it's like user experience or marketing messaging or something, like, maybe we could like give a little bit on things that aren't like the core safety component. And that's part of working on a multidisciplinary team in startups. But I have watched your model grow and have like incredible like clinical quality throughout. And I think that it's really cool when you start something and then you see it grow, and like the core of it is maintained as the company grows. Because, some companies, like, the product really morphs over time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. I think to what you're saying also, like, your mind expands as to what the possibilities are for what you could do in your space, and like what's okay and what's not okay also changes. And that's okay. That's fine. That's fair. And I think when we compare, when like all the things that I've learned and being on this side of the world and not just being in straight medicine and like following that pathway traditionally, it's just opened my eyes to so much of what we can do with our field. Also, like, I'm going to say the word incorrect, like the dogmatism. Like, I don't want to be dogmatic about things that were ingrained in me when we were training and trying to figure out what they mean to me on a different level and from a different perspective as well. So definitely opened my eyes up to be on this side of things.
I think I probably told you this story a long time ago, but I remember giving a talk at the American Academy of Pediatrics meeting. It was probably in like 2014 about telehealth. And back then it was like, I mean, in my mind, I was like, if we're designing tools to be able to have more information on our patients and find ways to use this in a high quality manner, like, wouldn't that be wonderful? And I mean, people were lined up in the aisle to yell at me, to be like, there is no way. I mean, again, 2014, nobody was doing this. There is no way that you can ever give high quality care over telehealth. You cannot feel a child's abdomen. You cannot, you cannot touch them. It is not okay. You cannot you cannot maintain standard of care. And I really challenged that, because it was like, okay, let's give you a scenario. Your sister texts you a picture of like your nephew, and maybe they give you a picture of like a laceration and want to know if it needs stitches. Would you say to her, I cannot assess this because I cannot feel my nephew's abdomen? No. Like, I mean, why do we maintain a lot of the standards of the ways we do things in medicine? And quite frankly, a lot of them are rooted in billing and payment requirements.
That's very true.
And so,
I don't think we realize that. Like, we don't know that when we're training.
No.
And so, like, that's so ingrained in us that, like, head to toe, you can't miss a thing. But it's probably for billing purposes. And the person who's training us maybe doesn't even know that either.
Well, and then I feel like what you and I both had the opportunity to do when we were building different models for peds is to kind of take it aside and be like, what would a kid really need to really get high quality care, what they need? Because whether it's, I mean, what are the alternatives? Like not seeking care, going to a urgent care that, might not be qualified for peds. Correct. Like, think about the alternatives and try and identify, how can we provide the most accessible, high quality care for kids using new technology and tools. So,
and like when you say what they need is not that full exam in the abdomen examined. What they need is for their mom to be able to stay home with their other two kids because there's nobody else there, to not drive 3 hours, because I mean, we take for granted, like, not everyone has access to a pediatrician 15 minutes away in their town. There's something like, I had the stat, 15 million kids living in rural America where they don't have easy access to pediatric care. So what they need is to be able to boop, boop, boop. Can you tell me what I need to do next? What's the next best?
With safety guardrails built in.
Right, like, absolutely.
Is your model what you would want for someone who is like having an extreme asthma attack, can't breathe, and is about to crash? Well, that is not the ideal case for telehealth, but you can build in safety and resources to get these kids to the right level of care.
Absolutely.
And I mean, I think that like people were a little bit aghast when we started building Imagine. They're like, wait, you're going to take care of kids on ventilators in rural Texas via telehealth? And it's like, wow, that sounds dangerous. And when you say it that way, it does sound dangerous, but until you realize that the majority of the model that we give is like, hey, mom, how are you doing? Are you getting all your did you get all your meds filled? Do you have questions about your care? Which is what they
need. It's the preventive, proactive care that gets in early, that makes sure they're never running out of that drug, that when they get that asthma attack, they're not escalating to an ER. Yes, that's what they need. And that's what it's so easy to provide by telehealth.
And it's easy to jump to like what about emergency situation? Well, we build for that in the models. We build safety. So
I will say, I'll double down on that even and say, we don't disappear or go away. Like the urgent care doctor down the street doesn't know where that kid is going to go. They go home and they are into the abyss. There's no continuity. There's nothing. We don't go away. Like, we're there. You want to assess an allergic reaction? Send us a picture, send us a video. At minute 1, minute 15, minute 20, hour and 30. And we can keep assessing because we could see them constantly. So I think it's a very safe way to do medicine when you're doing it the right way.
Yeah. So you told me you connected with these co-founders, but you didn't exactly say, like, were you practicing were you in fellowship at the time?
I just became a full-blown attending in the real world of practicing medicine.
Did you know you wanted to do a startup? Did you have an idea, or did you just meet these people?
There's something that happens when you hit being an attending that you're like, I worked so hard to get here. I'm so proud of myself. And like, oh, and this is it? Like, what's next? There's no like training. You're not answering to the same sort of like system. You're not in the system anymore. There's like the escalation of where you go with your career. It's just everything just kind of like halts and you're like, wait, what?
What else do I do?
Yeah, like this is where I worked hard to get and I'm here. Now what? So I think like that's my personality. Like I want to be challenged. I want to see the next thing. I want to be involved. I don't know, like I have FOMO on all the things I could be missing out on developing and how I could be impacting kids on a greater scale. So this came across, thank God I was not looking for a kid. And God, it came to me. One of the co-founders is someone I went to medical school with. And it was like just such a perfect match. But I have to say I'm very lucky. And I think it goes both ways though. Like if I wasn't ready or wasn't made for this sort of thing, like I would have passed it over.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you were really in the weeds at the very beginning. And you said you were the naysayer of like, nope, can't do that. Can't do that. Can't do that. Where did you land as far as, we've kind of alluded to the model, but where did you land as far as like what your model does?
Yeah, so Blueberry Pediatrics takes care of kids. It provides instant access to pediatricians 24/7, 365. So parents can text, they can use audio calls, they can do video calls. We send home a kit. I actually have one here that contains an otoscope, a pulse oximeter, and a thermometer. And this enables us to make a lot more diagnoses from home very safely because we can actually see the tympanic membrane when we need to, the eardrum, or we could look into the throat and we can prescribe a strep test and actually get a strep test done. So like really maintaining the high quality evidence-based care that we believe in. So those guardrails are there. We match HEDIS measures that are looked at by insurance companies. So like they want to know for those diagnosing strep, are you testing them? Are you actually seeing if it's there or not just throwing on antibiotics? We put in safety requirements. Our doctors, we audit. We have things that are automated in order to be able to make sure we are checking in on these measures constantly. And so the continuity of care of trying to have like a small practice group that's focusing on an area in America, because we're almost across all 50 states at this point, to make sure that our EMR is very functional so that we can have that visible continuity of care. And that it's an easy, wonderful, fast, pleasant experience for patients and for the doctors because their experience doctoring is very important to us as well.
So I provide the equivalent of Blueberry Pediatrics to my basically all sorts of random people in my network and neighbors and family members and people from my investment firm that are like, hey, can you look at this picture? Or like I literally, have been known to like have people pull into my driveway while I bring my otoscope outside and look in their child's ear for them. I'm a good friend to have, but it's nice that you figured out how to do this at scale.
So it's funny because when people text me or friends or whatever, I'm more than happy to help. Like I'm a mom. Like I get it. You need an answer and you trust someone, you have them available, you're going to use them. A lot of times too, I'm like, okay, do X, Y, and Z. And also Blueberry can help you prescribe a prescription. They can give you an antibiotic if you need it.
With a doctor, a trusted pediatrician.
Like there's actually, we have physicians who practice in urgent cares and ERs. Like they're going to tell you better than I am as a neonatologist if your daughter needs sutures. So why don't you ask them?
That's so funny. Yeah. So, I mean, you've built a great model and I think that it's very needed in Gen Peds. Like, I think that, a lot of people listening probably have kids and probably have the experience of like, oh man, like things in peds happen at like the most inconvenient times. Like I just like really feel for people when I'm working late in the ER and they're like, I know this is a really dumb reason to be in the ER, but literally nothing is open that can deal with this problem right now. And so I think, I love the model you've created, and it obviously didn't start with these beautiful kits that you now send out, and it probably was a lot more scrappy at the beginning. But tell me a little bit more about like how your role has evolved over the past few years and like what sorts of things you've actually done as a founder and a chief medical officer.
Yeah, so obviously that's evolved a lot over time. I'll tell you kind of what it is now and all the things that it entails. I'll probably forget something, but The CMO role actually was just described by the CMO of Maven. Neil Shah, I hope I get that. He said there, and as a CMO role, have you heard this, by the way? It's so good.
No, not yet.
There's indoor cats and there's outdoor cats. And this CMO is you get it, right? Like,
yeah,
there's so many roles that you could play as a CMO. So like the indoor cats, you're working on like clinical quality measures, setting up systems internally, figuring out like how to report adverse events, all these very nitty gritty clinical or maybe making partnerships. Oh, that's probably a little more outdoor cat, but the outdoor cat's like thought leadership, branding, the social media aspect. And like there's CMOs that really strictly only do that even. So there's so many types of CMO roles and we probably all play them a little differently. Like for me, I do both. So my outdoor cat role is I'm in sales meetings. I'm creating partnerships through my network. I am on social media. I'm trying to build up thought leadership as well, because as an advocate for kids, like now I have a bit of a stage to get on and scream that we should be doing more for children. That's like the outdoor cat. The indoor is I've structured a team. I am involved like in day to day about, physician. Let's talk about compensation. Let's talk about, what's a good thing that we're doing? Like any type of new project. We have committees that doctors have formed and the ways that they want to contribute differently. So we're trying to create new projects.
Workflow.
Yeah. Oh, workflow. I'm forgetting the easy stuff. There's scheduling, there's licensing, there's new partners within licensing. There's so many things to be dealing with on a day to day. But so like the way I break it down, maybe best way to think about it is who I work with within my org. So there's the product team. So there's UX. And so figuring out patient flow, doctor flow, that's new partnerships, new programs you're going to build up. There's operations, which is like the physician licensing, cost per visit, all scheduling, and then engineering is going to work probably between all of those. Data collection. Do we want to publish on anything? How do we work on the back end to bring out data that we want to bring out? The list really goes on, but that's all those things in a day's work. And it doesn't all come at once, but like learning to delegate and finding other people to help with those roles is obviously extremely important.
Yeah. So it sounds like a lot, and I've done all of those things too. I think that you're right that there are different like flavors of CMOs and what sort of roles might be needed. And there's also a lot of roles within startups for like medical directors. Like I think that is a really cool position that is a nice stepping stone for people that are wanting to maybe they have some leadership skills or they've been building teams in a more traditional setting. But running a program or a team within a startup is a great way to get involved as a leader. And it almost seems like a more accessible first route into the startup world. I mean, I think you and I both jumped straight into a CMO role because it was just like we kind of made it. So like we made the company. The company didn't exist and now it does. And I'm the doctor, right. So I guess I'm the CMO. But what would you suggest to people that are hearing this and are thinking like, wow, that sounds really interesting. It sounds like something I would like to do. What sort of pathways do you think exist for doctors to get more involved in this sort of work?
Yeah, so actually what you just said is like really on par with what I've seen directly and seen. I'll go into like outside of what I'm doing directly, but working for a company like mine or yours, where as a doctor, you're usually like, I'll speak for Blueberry. We include one of the biggest things that we say is a perk of working for Blueberry, and I think attracts the people who want to work for us, is that we give you a seat at the table as a doctor. We want your feedback. We'll act on your feedback. And if you want to be more involved, like we want you, we are going to welcome that with open arms. And we're going to compensate somehow. We're not going to ask you to do free labor, get your thoughts for free. We really want to have doctors involved in the process of growing this company. And so just by being there and speaking up and having opinions, it's noticed. And usually, hopefully, there's a way to progress through there's some mobility to show that you've taken on these leadership roles. And then you could start seeing what else is out there with it. Cause then that's very much revered if other people are looking for doctors in this role. And you start to amass the skills to do the next position of leadership, and then the next position of leadership. But it definitely takes initiative on the doctor's part. It's not going to just fall in someone's lap. It's a lot of work. And there are more and more people wanting these type of roles. So you got to show up and figure out what you're interested in and passionate about, because if you're not, it's not worth it. And you're not going to show up in the way you want.
Yeah. I tell people similar things, that like the people that stand out are the ones that reach out, the ones that feel really excited about what they're doing and wanting to contribute to. Like if you had a doctor that joined your organization as a practicing pediatrician and maybe works part-time clinically for you, but then they have like a bunch of ideas and they want to bring them up, and they have like thoughts on like programs you could develop, like that would stand out to you. You might not know all the part-time pediatricians that are providing care for you, but one that's reaching out and giving ideas. There are ways to develop new skill sets. And like you said, like growing those skill sets are transferable to other roles too, like in other organizations. So I think that I personally feel like it's a lot easier to jump up in leadership roles within more of the industry venture side of things than like traditional academics, where it's like, if you work here,
started on that.
If you work here for 45 years, you can then like be hailed as the top of the totem pole.
Well, there's just a sharp contrast, and I think this is one of the things I've really, really like not just noticed, but just enjoyed on this side of things, is that good work and thoughtfulness is appreciated, welcomed, and rewarded, and incentivized, because there's more to come. In traditional academic medicine, there's so little of that. And like our pay structures don't necessarily incentivize you to step out of your very normal box of practice or scope of work to like be innovative and take on leadership roles or take on committee roles. It's just like, here, do you want to do this for free? Because maybe it'll get you a conversation for 3 minutes with someone who could potentially impact your future. It's just, I don't see very obvious pathways for growth that are easily there, with a lot of open positions for mobility within big academic institutions that are built on like, you have to publish 1 million papers in order to progress.
Because you and I both, like when we were both first connecting and we were both building these companies, we were not really all that far out of training. You said you had just become an attending. I think I had been an attending for, I don't know, a handful of years. And I think that sometimes earlier career physicians, there are a lot of opportunities where you have a valid feedback and a valid voice. Like sometimes in a more traditional environment, it's like very hierarchical, and it's like you're maybe not as welcome to like bring up a lot of ideas.
Yeah. And I think like also geographically, there's just maybe not many places that you want to go once you're settled with a family. It makes it very hard when there's like just people above you also waiting for those roles to fill. It's just very challenging. It's just different.
Yeah.
World.
Especially in pediatric subspecialties, like you and I both are. Like I remember thinking back when I had a lot of limiting mindsets about my career, I remember thinking like, oh, wow, there are 3 hospitals in my city that hire my specialty. Like I have so many options. I can't believe like for the whole rest of my career, I have 3 career options. That's really amazing compared to like a lot of places only have 1 children's hospital. I didn't realize my options were actually infinite. I don't have to work full-time at a children's hospital. But yeah, I think that it can be really hard when you're like trained in that environment.
Oh yeah. I find that most are not looking outside of that until they're just so burned. And then it's so hard to start again or fresh and new. And not that it should stop anyone. Everyone should do that if they want to. But I think the burnout comes on strong, and you're like, how do I start fresh now?
Do you feel like working in a more creative space is an antidote to burnout?
100%. Yes, it is so fun. I mean, not every day is like totally thrilling. I'm like on the edge of my seat, but very often we're doing such cool stuff, or I'm in a room with such impressive people and I'm so motivated and inspired. And I have that at my fingertips. And you know what? If I want to reach out and talk to someone who's like tangential to my field and hear about what they're doing, a lot of people just are very willing to get on the phone and talk about it. And it's hearing about that gives you other ideas and you have to be creative. I always feel like medical school training, fellowship just like shuts down the right side of your like creativity. And it's like, oh, I can open that back up. Like I can create from nothing, which we don't do from like when we're, 5 years old. I watch my kids scribbling around, making drawings. I'm like, oh, I feel like I can create again. Like you were doing, scribbling with your crayons.
I could not agree more. I think that is actually one of the things that draws people the most to like ask me like, how do I get involved in this, is when I talk about like unlocking creativity, because I think people just breathe this visible sigh of like, oh my gosh, like I have not been creative in my career. Because like if you're managing a kid with septic shock, you don't really want to get creative, right? You want to follow a protocol.
Right.
But it's I think we have so many skills to offer. I've loved seeing what you've built and how it's morphed and grown. And I think there's obviously a lot of parallels to what I've built and how it's grown. Do you have any, last thoughts for people that might be listening and are very captivated by the sort of concepts that you're describing?
Yeah, I've noticed, and I hopefully this drew pediatricians, because I'll speak to like the pediatrician mindset when it comes from what I've seen. I think, and I'm going to overgeneralize on this, so forgive me, but like as a group, I find, and especially like the people that I work with regularly, I mean, pediatricians are amazing. Like, thank goodness I work with pediatricians. They're good people. They're good-hearted. They do the right thing. They're also like a little hesitant to ask for things. And what I've learned is that when you have to ask, you have to make your demands, not obnoxiously, but like kindly, with proof, with something to validate them. Ask for what you want and need. And you could be told no, and that's fine, but you've made the ask, because if you don't do that, you don't get anything. You don't get anywhere. Whether it's salary or like extra non-clinical time, administrative, another role, more responsibility, make the ask. You already have the no, like see what you can get out of it.
Yeah. That's such great advice. And for those of you who are listening, I especially if you're a parent, highly recommend checking out Blueberry Pediatrics on their website or social media. And then for those of you who have been inspired by Lyndsey's story, if you'd like to reach out to her, we will put your LinkedIn in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining me. I've really enjoyed, like I said, our parallel career paths and watching you grow over the years. And I just really appreciate you spending the time today.
Same here. Anytime. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. See you all next time. Thank you for listening to Startup Physicians. Don't forget to like, follow, and share.